Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison was actually born James Douglas Morrison. The name doesn't really suit him because, come on, this man defines Mojo. But let me go back to Morrison's childhood for a minute because I think it's really important to talk about the man who he was before he became the enigma. Jim Morrison, the Jim Morrison we remember today, is a man who is known for his excesses. He's known for wearing leather pants on stage and vomiting all over because he's just done too much LSD and mixed it with alcohol in the middle of a performance. But the core of Jim Morrison is not the artist dependent on drugs. It's the fragile man that had to go to the drugs in order to protect himself, because Jim Morrison, at his core, when he was a teenager, he discovered a lot of philosophy. And in the 50s, he actually read Jack Kerouac's On the Road Again. And he kind of set out to do that himself, to find his own form of being, and Jim Morrison at his core was a person who was searching. He was searching to expand his own horizons, and he wanted to bring everybody along for the ride. What's unfortunate about Jim Morrison is that a lot of his horizon expansion came at a personal cost to him, because he did a lot of exploration, as a lot of other people did in the 60s and 70s, through drugs, which led to him dying of an overdose in 1971. The Jim Morrison, unfortunately, that we know of today is the Jim Morrison who was drinking so much alcohol that he could barely stand, who was doing LSD, who was doing cocaine, and certainly a lot of his critics over the years have said that he was only able to be quite as eccentric as he was because he was on all these drugs, because he was in that state on LSD. He was able to perform, he was able to create things that he wouldn't have been able to create. I don't think I agree with that. I think that Jim Morrison was a very introspective character. He was actually a very troubled soul, and that unfortunately for him, he needed the drugs in order to get him away from himself, to get him away from his own ego long enough that he could actually let the creativity out. But I don't think that the drugs are what gave him the creativity. I think that Jim Morrison, he had this most beautiful baritone voice, and when you listen to him singing, I mean, those songs are really coming from his soul. So I think Jim Morrison is somebody who really, despite his untimely death, and despite the fact that he essentially killed himself through excess, he's someone who really symbolizes Mojo. He's somebody who went after what he believed in. He's somebody who really marched to the beat of his own drum at all times. And despite the fact that he died of an overdose, he really did live his life to the extreme, which is what he wanted to do. And he lived every second. And he got up on stage and he gyrated, and people went crazy. But that was Mojo, man. That was Mojo.